Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Booty Pickups. In today's video, we'll be talking about the Nike X Acronym Vapormax Moc 2s. So these shoes came out during Air Max week. It released in a capsule of 3 different colorways. There was this black and bone colorway with the Volt highlights. There was also a black and Volt version and a red, black, and gray version. I'll put up the pictures up here so you can see. The other 2 colorways of this shoe were only available through acronym.com. I think Nike and the other retailers are planning to trickle release them throughout the year, but for now, the only way you could have gotten them was if you bought them on acronym.com the day of the release. But me personally, I really dig this colorway. I think this is the best colorway out of the 3. So Nike and Acronym, they've been putting out banger collabs for the last couple of years. They had the AF1 Downtowns, they had the Lunar Force 1s, and most recently they had the Prestos, and all those collabs were really well received. So when I saw that Nike came out with the Vapormaxes last year, the Vapormax 1s, the first thing I thought when I saw this shoe was like, wow, this would make a great collab shoe because this shoe looks so futuristic. It has like Acronym written all over it, right? So I wasn't too surprised when leaks came out a couple of weeks ago about these shoes, the Acronym Vapormax Moc 2s. It's just kind of like a natural progression of things. So, here we have it. It is finally out. The hype behind this shoe, I think, was not as big because, multiple factors, I guess. It came out during Air Max week, like a day or 2 right before the Sean Wotherspoon 97 1s. So all the hype was there for the Sean Witherspoons and not much left for the Vapormaxes. I mean, good for me, I guess, because I wanted to get these shoes and I was able to get these shoes pretty easily. Also, I think a lot of people are kind of turned off by the crazy kind of print, all over print on this shoe. But we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Before I go into all the specific kind of features of this shoe, I kind of want to talk about the design story behind it. I read this fascinating interview with Errolson Hugh of Acronym and his process behind designing these shoes, and I think it's like worth talking about. Errolson kind of seems to have this formula when it comes to Nike collabs. He takes a classic silhouette and then he kind of like upgrades it. He puts his like Acronym utilitarian twist on it. Like he adds zippers, makes it easy to get on and off. He adds different midsoles for additional comfort, etc., etc. So he essentially makes a better version of the shoe, like an Acronym version of the shoe. When it came to this shoe, however, the Vapormax, he said, he had to approach this differently because the previous shoes that he collabed with, the Prestos or the Air Force 1s, they're decades old. They're an old silhouette, and there was a lot of room for improvement in terms of like technicality and functionality. However, these shoes, the Vapormaxes, especially the Vapormax 2s, like literally just came out like this year. So they're brand new. This is like the pinnacle of Nike technology. Like they have the best Nike upper technology right now, and one of the best Nike midsole technologies. Notice I said one of the best. Anyway, so yeah, when he was approached to design this shoe, do this collab, he was like, well, this is like one of the best shoes out right now. They're like, how can I really add anything to the functionality? And also he thought that the Vapormax was such a kind of like an agile, fast looking shoe. Just like putting like belts and buckles and Velcro and like little bells and whistles on it would kind of like detract from the overall fast aesthetic of the shoe. So instead, he said, you know what? In this case, more is less and less is more. So he went with a minimal approach. He said he didn't want to retro anything about the shoe. Instead, he wanted to change a shoe in a major way, in a different way, a visual way. And that is how we come to this all over crazy print. That way he could totally change the entire shoe without actually changing any of the structural components. So now that we talked about that design story, let's actually examine all the individual components of the shoe. So like I just said, this shoe is essentially a Vapormax Moc 2. There is literally nothing different in terms of structure. I guess there's like some slight differences. I'll touch on those as we go. But for the most part, 90% of this shoe is a Vapormax Moc 2, identical. The most notable thing, obviously, is this upper and the crazy pattern on the Flyknit. So when I saw pictures of this online, so I thought this white or bone color was printed on this black Flyknit, because that's what it kind of looks like, especially here. But then, now that I have it in my hand and I'm actually looking at it really up close and I can see the individual threads, I'm happy to report that this the pattern, the all over print pattern, is actually woven into the Flyknit. It is not printed on, it's woven. And it's this crazy like all over chevron print or A print. I think it might be, A for acronym. It's just like all over the place, but I would like to note that the uniformity of the print is outstanding. In that same interview I was talking to you about earlier, Errolson does mention the challenges he had working with Flyknit and all over patterns, because when Flyknit is applied to this outsole, it's really stretched like in this outermost area. So if you print out a all over print pattern uniformly on a flat sheet of Flyknit and fold it across the outsole, the outside of the patterns are going to stretch out way more and it will distort the pattern. So they had to compensate for that. So when they wove the initial Flyknit, when it was flat, they wove it in a distorted way so that when it's stretched out, it would be uniform. So I thought that was like really cool. And I think the end product looks totally sick. Like, it's totally uniform. It does not look like it's been stretched any way whatsoever. So mega props for the Acronym team for pulling that off. I think that, just shows how much attention to detail went into this shoe. So there's two different types of knit zones here. You have this kind of like porous knit, which consists of the top of the upper, and then you have this more tight knit that kind of goes around the border of the upper. Obviously, the porous knit is less structural and gives a lot more ventilation, so your foot can cool down, and the more tightly knitted areas around the outside provide more structural integrity to the shoe. And you can see here, the toe is also reinforced by this TPU mud guard to give even more rigidity to the front of the shoe and make sure the Flyknit doesn't blow out where your toes are. So moving to the midfoot, let's talk a little bit about the Moc configuration of this shoe. So essentially what this shoe is, it's exactly the same as a regular Vapormax, but instead of the laces, they just put this elastic band in front of the tongue. You can even see that compared to the regular Vapormaxes, so the Vapormaxes have the fly wire kind of going down the midfoot area. It's kind of hard to see here because of the crazy all over pattern, but you can still see the fly wire exists. And it comes up to where the lacelets for the original Vapormax would be and just kind of holds this elastic band in place. Moving to the tongue, you can see that the tongue is essentially the same tongue as the Vapormaxes. The graphic did change with a Vapormax 2. Instead of the Nike Vapormax label, you now have just the regular Vapormax label, which I think looks a little cooler. It's a little more minimalistic. Moving around to the back of the shoe, I think this is where kind of like the biggest difference happens from a regular Vapormax Moc 2. The heel counter area consisted of these crazy geometrically cut out fuse panels. So you got 4 fuse panels total, and a gray fuse panel that kind of like is under all 4 of them here. On the lateral side, you have the Acronym Dynamics logo and a little mini swoosh. On the medial side, you have just a little baby swoosh. Moving to the heel, you have a slight splash of the Volt color and the Acronym logo done in this super futuristic font. And you can also find some very tiny Vapormax branding and Acronym branding right along the flanks as well. So flipping the shoe over, let's move over to the Vapormax units. So unlike any other Vapormax shoe that has released before, this shoe has solid matte painted Vapormax bubble units. So this particular colorway has white Vapormax. Well, I guess it's more or less a bone colorway, but it's incredibly unique because no other VaporMax has done this kind of coloration before. It gets incredibly dirty very quickly, as you can see. I've only worn these for like 3 days and they're all black, but I think it still affords a really cool look. The forefoot section of the VaporMax unit is not colored in, and it is just transparent. And as you can see here, the VaporMax Dynamics logo is under the main forefoot unit. Finally, moving on to the sock liner. The sock liner is indeed removable. You got this pretty cool graphic on here. I thought it looked like some lettering, but I couldn't really understand what it meant. If anyone knows what this means, like, please let me know. And you have some Acronym x Nike Air branding towards the heel here. So yeah, it's a nice little sole, nothing too special. I like the fact that you can swap out the soles in case you want to put in something a little more comfortable. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers all the features of the shoe. Let's talk a little bit about fit and comfort and wearability. In terms of fit, these fit pretty true to size, but I knew that once I saw this like elastic band right here in the midfoot, I needed to size up because I have a very high midfoot and I didn't want my midfoot to be squashed down. And I don't like a lot of pressure here on the midfoot. So I decided to go one size up. I'm technically like a 13.5, but since no one makes a 13.5, I just decided to go for a 14. And I'm happy to report that the midfoot area is like very roomy and spacious. It just presses down just the right amount. Because I did size up that like little bit, I have a little bit of wiggle room in my toes, but I think that's way better than the alternative. If I had sized down to a 13, I think my toes would get squashed, and I would take the wiggle room in the toes over the squashed toes like 100 times out of 100 times. So let's talk about comfort. VaporMaxes are pretty comfortable shoes. Like the midfoot, like the VaporMax cushioning technology, it's like a very bouncy technology. It's definitely different from anything like Boost or React or Zoom X because, you know, the main characteristic I think with VaporMax is that you can feel each individual VaporMax unit. Like each cell, you can feel it under your feet. At first, it might kind of bother people, but you know, you eventually get used to it, and it's like a nice kind of like fun feeling. It's like a playful feeling shoe, what can I say? But I think the majority of the strength of the VaporMax lies in the upper. I think the VaporMaxes are the best upper Nike has ever made. The structure of the Flyknit is perfect. It just stretches just the right amount, and most importantly, it ventilates really well. And this is really important to me because, you know, a lot of times, like, when you're just kind of like, you know, like walking the dog or like going out for a bite to eat, going to the supermarket, you know, it's actually a lot of work to put on socks and then like put on shoes and like lace them up. Like it takes like 2-3 minutes. With VaporMaxes, you can like, you know, just slip these on just over your bare feet and you'll be fine because it ventilates so well. You don't really need socks. You don't get sweaty feet. So I noticed that I wore these pretty much like all the time. These are probably like one of my most worn sneakers. They're just, the upper is just that good and comfortable. So I'm pretty happy to report that for the Acronym Vapormax Moc 2s, the upper is essentially exactly the same. The Moc system really doesn't change anything too much for me because I wear my regular VaporMax ones like a slip-on anyways. So this being a slip-on, you know, it's pretty much the same to me. The upper consistency has not changed in between the VaporMax 1 and 2. So I guess Nike is taking the good old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach. Speaking of wearability, I guess we have to touch on aesthetic wearability as well, because this pattern is pretty crazy, and you know, this shoe is definitely not for the faint of heart. And I kind of agree, like you are kind of limited to like what kind of pants you can wear with this and what kind of outfit you can wear with it. You kind of have to keep it like pretty Techwear, you know, to pull this off. So you can wear maybe white pants or black pants with this, but like no one has white pants. Like I don't really see anyone with white pants. So realistically, you're limited to black pants. And you could just wear this with like some regular black skinny chinos, or ideally you would wear it with some sort of like adjustable cuff Techwear pant with like some zippers on the side, or like a little adjustable buckle, or any sort of techie looking pant that tapers down at the ankle, I think would really work well with this. So I actually have the Kith Mercer, which are the adjustable ankle pants, and I also have the Nike bonded fleece pants, which are kind of like this kind of technical material pant that looks pretty cool. So I'll try and show you these shoes with those on so you guys can kind of get a feel for them. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything I have to say. I really like that Acronym and Nike are taking chances and coming out with cool colorways like this. They could have definitely played it a lot more safer with this, but you know, this is fantastic. This is right up my alley. So yeah, hopefully that answered any questions you guys had about this shoe. It's definitely a really cool one. I think resale for this is pretty much very close to retail. If you haven't picked it up, you know, I definitely recommend getting yourself a pair. So once again, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.